It was nice what Jalen Hurts did. We were a feel-good story last year, but if we're thinking about sustained success in the long run, how much can he improve as a passer to kind of get us in that mix with some of the names I mentioned? So
appreciate you streaming on in here on Birds 365 on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Go ahead, hit like, subscribe, share, do the right thing. Take care of your boys, McMullen, and McDonald. We've got an esteemed guest joining us. It's been months since we've been able to procure him. Good to get him aboard with us today. Covers the entire league for the Athletic with a Birds bent. Let's be honest. He's been a Birds guy for many a year. Our buddy Sheil Kapadia hops aboard with us. All right, you got to pull the hat down. What kind of hat are you wearing there, Kapadia? Can't see the...
I think it's a Baltimore terror. You know, these online ads just get me. I see, like, I'm their target market. I see something I like, I click. The next thing you know, I got a hat showing up at my door, and I don't even know what it is. So that's kind of where I'm at.
There's a good logo. I saw America's team too. I said, "What's Sheil? Is he tweaking people?" I thought it was Dallas Cowboys,
team,
but no, yeah, that's the dream team. So you avoided that that visceral reaction from the Eagles fans. So well done there. That is America's team, truly America's team. But I do want to talk to you about, because I love this, your 10-step guide for NFL teams to avoid a disastrous offseason. Sheil Kapadia. Now, my favorite is the 2-minute rule. So I want you to describe to the listeners the 2-minute rule.
Yeah, I think if you're looking to sign a big name free agent or make a big trade, you should think about it's the last 2 minutes. It's a one possession game. Is this player on the field or is this player on the sideline? Now, that might sound stupid. Of course, you would think, hey, the player's going to be on the field, but not true. I mean, if you're looking to dump resources into a running back who's not a dynamic receiving threat, if you're looking to dump money into a run-stuffing nose tackle who can't affect the passer, if you're looking to spend on a downhill thumper linebacker who might be a liability in coverage, and we see teams do this every offseason. So some of it might sound obvious, but I think 44% of NFL games last year were decided by 7 points or fewer. I mean, the margin of error in these games is so small that when you're in a salary cap world where you have to think, how am I going to allocate these different resources? You really have to think about that. Can these guys be on the field? Are they going to help me win the game down the stretch in the circumstances you just mentioned?
So it sounds like, and this is not a new concept, but you could subscribe to it. Quarterback, because we know that they're involved in every single play. If you eliminate you're on defense half of the time. If you're just talking about offense, the quarterback has got to be the key guy. The Eagles have 3 veterans that they may be interested in if they decide to move off Jalen Hurts, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson. Which or will any of these guys be traded before the NFL draft this year?
Well, I think it's a strange place in the NFL right now in that it's easier than ever to find a competent quarterback. I mean, you look around the league and you look at these teams, and how many would you look at and say they've got no chance at even making the playoffs next year because of the quarterback? I mean, it's probably fewer than 5. And so you can achieve that kind of baseline level of competency at the same time. That doesn't matter that much anymore because you've got Mahomes and Josh Allen and these guys who can just put the team on their back. You can drop them onto any roster in the NFL, and that team's probably going to be in the playoffs, maybe in the Super Bowl mix. And so with the Eagles, they're in an interesting spot. You know, I feel like Howie Roseman is not that patient of a man. You know, I feel like he may look at this and say, it was nice what Jalen Hurts did. We were a feel-good story last year. But if we're thinking about sustained success in the long run, how much can he improve as a passer to kind of get us in that mix with some of the names I mentioned? So, you know, the guys you mentioned, I still believe Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers are staying put. I mean, I don't know. That's just me. I look at Aaron Rodgers and I say, if he takes a survey of the rest of the NFL and he says, is there a better situation than I'm in right now? I know they haven't won a Super Bowl, but they've won, 39 games in the last 3 years? I mean, they're right there in the mix knocking on the door. It seems like that relationship with the front office is better. So I still don't believe that he's going anywhere. And if he does go somewhere, he's going to choose where he wants to go. And I think that would probably be Denver, where his former coach is coaching there. And so I would be surprised if he were an Eagles candidate. Russell Wilson, a little bit more doubt in my mind, but I still believe he's going to stay put in Seattle. Because if you're the Seahawks, I don't know what the motivation is to trade Russell Wilson. Pete Carroll turned 71 years old in September. Now you're telling me at that stage in his career, he's going to say, let's go ahead and trade our quarterback and start anew. I don't really see it. So it would have to be a situation where Russell Wilson is just so fed up, is so frustrated that he says, listen, I'm willing to go to extreme lengths to push for a trade here. And if he does that, is he really going to view Philadelphia as a better situation than Seattle? I would be surprised by that as well. So I think those guys are staying put. Deshaun Watson is just a difficult guy to discuss right now because the guy's facing 22 civil charges. The criminal complaint has not been resolved. We don't know what the league's going to do. And so until more facts come out, it's hard for me to say he's going to get traded before the draft, after the draft, whatever. He is the guy who is going to get traded at some point, if he is, presuming he's still in the league. We just don't know when that's going to be the case.
Yeah, and on Aaron Rodgers, Sheil, he's got to stay close to the home base just from the Pancha karma cleanse. I mean,
that's
he can't go too far.
I would agree with that. Yeah, that's another factor we've got to factor in here.
Yeah, he can't go too far. One of the things you brought up, Howie Roseman, though. So one of the things you also talk about is target GMs and coaches who are sort of lame ducks, or, they're coaching for their job, GMing for their job. From Howie, the Eagles are very, as you know, they're not above board with some of their personnel decisions. It goes back to, I think, 2018 when Doug Peterson got his extension. They like to sync up the GM and the coach. In theory, Howie Roseman's contract expires in 2022. They might have redone it by now. We just might not know it when he got the GM title back. There's no danger of Howie Roseman in Philadelphia right now, is there?
No, I don't think so. He's survived, he's been there for 4 different head coaches. I feel like if Jeffrey Lurie were going to make a move, it would have been when he parted ways with Doug Peterson. He could have made a clean break there and said, all right, let's start anew with a new head coach and a new GM. He did not do that. He really relies on Howie Roseman as his right-hand man. You're seeing, you saw a lot of their guys in the front office leave for other jobs this offseason. So, no, I don't think Howie Roseman is in any danger. I think he did a good job last offseason. Now, last offseason, the goal was to set up for this offseason. So let's talk in 6 months and see how they do. But certainly getting what they got for Carson Wentz, that was a good job by him. Devontae Smith was a good pick by him. And so they got the franchise kind of moving in the right direction. Now, having said that, I would say don't get it. This has been a mediocre team since the Super Bowl win. I think a lot of people point to the 4 playoff wins. They're 31-33 and 31-33-1 since the Super Bowl. And so they're right there in the middle of the pack. If you look at how the roster is constructed right now and look ahead to next year, no one's looking at the Eagles as a serious contender going into 2022. So this is like a huge, whatever you want to call it, 3-month stretch here in the state of the franchise with the 3 first-round picks, with the other decisions they have to make. That's kind of going to get them set up for the next run.
Sheil, we'll probably get further clarification on Howie's contract status when everybody gets out to the combine. That it'll be the first time in a while, first time it's actually been raised in the media that, Howie's coming up on being a lame duck GM. So he'll probably be asked about it, and hopefully we get some information and some confirmation. But out at the combine, the unbubbled combine that the NFL just had to basically skim back a little bit because of threat from the Players Association with a bunch of agents who represent some of the top talent. They decided to relax some of the things that they were going to try and have in place at the combine. Just the fact that it makes it easier for a guy like you or anybody else who's going to go out and cover the combine, and that the players are going to be more comfortable out there, that they know they're going to have their people in place. Does the fact that the NFL / the combine, which NFL trying to put out that they don't really control the combine, is for me almost humorous. Does them skimming back and taking a step back tell you anything more about the NFL, or is just Jody, this is a nothing burger, not that big a story? Why are you making a big deal out of it?
Yeah, to me, it seemed kind of, fairly obvious that they should scale it back, like you said, and make the change. I think, it's been 2+ years and people are still trying to figure out what restrictions should be in place right now. So I don't really, blame anybody for that. But certainly, you look at the combine, it's a flawed event when you look at the testing for these guys. I mean, when you look at what athletes do to get ready for an actual game, whether it's nutrition, sleep, getting their body, stretching, getting their body right so that they can peak athletically during those 3 hours they play a football game. I mean, the combine is the absolute opposite. I mean, years ago, I don't know, this must have been 10, 12 years ago, I did a kind of a diary with Luke Kuechly, didn't know at that time he was going to turn out to be an all-time great, but basically just calling him once a week, hey, what are you doing now to get ready? And so he gave me a step-by-step of the combine. And it's like, these guys are on no sleep. They're waking up at 4:35 in the morning. Then they're asked to run. They're testing, their testing numbers have an effect on where they get drafted. They're sitting in these rooms in medical facilities waiting to get checked out, poked and prodded, and then they're going to have interviews after that. It's just like, it's a part of the process. It's obviously not, shouldn't be the number one thing you look at. And even with the testing numbers now, what's interesting, we'll get all these 40 times next week. A lot of these guys have the tracking devices in their college games. And so I remember Howie Roseman alluding to this. I forget what player it was, but basically you can actually see what their game speed is, just like you can see with the NFL players and next gen stats where they say, hey, this guy was running 18 miles per hour. You could see that with a lot of the college players. So, coaches you talk to, GMs, whatever, that's what they want to know is the game speed when they're out there, when they're playing, what is their speed? Because that can be different than just lining up there on the turf and running the 40.
All right, Sheil. Well, let's talk about those players who are going to be at the combine because, as you mentioned, the Eagles have a pretty important 3 months coming up. So kind of a two-parter for you. One, did you learn anything from the Super Bowl teams as far as how to build a team? And two is, with these 3 first-round picks, obviously that doesn't come around very often. Does that create more of a sense of urgency for Howie Roseman to get things done now as far as getting this team? We look at Cincinnati, 2 wins, 4 wins, Super Bowl. You can make a quick jump in this league. Does that create a sense of urgency for the Eagles?
Well, yeah, I think with the Super Bowl teams, I think actually organizations are going to make a mistake and look at the Rams and say, oh my God, look at what they did, their aggressive approach. Let's go do that and make a run. I mean, you have to look at the circumstances. The fact is they had Sean McVay, who produced a top 10 offense with Jared Goff 3 out of 4 seasons. And so your head coach is giving you an edge there without a doubt. Not saying he's perfect. He has his flaws for sure, but he was giving you an edge without a doubt. And so you looked at it and you said, all right, if you upgrade Goff from Stafford, the floor is pretty high and maybe the ceiling's pretty high because Stafford is a more talented player. And so they had just pieces in place. I mean, they have a city where players want to go. They had a good offensive line. They had Cooper Kupp, who delivered an all-time season as a wide receiver. They have 2 of the 5 best defensive players in the NFL in the prime of their career in Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. So I think teams have to be careful if they're going to say, hey, well, let's go, we'll take a big swing and we'll be right in there next year. Let's give away all our first round picks. You're probably going to be disappointed. And even with that, let's be honest, the Rams, they won their last 3 playoff games by 9 points. And so a little bounce here or there, we're saying, they went all in, they didn't make it. They got 1 more year. Let's see if it was the right approach. So I wouldn't jump to conclusions there. With the Bengals, the lesson is you can screw up a lot of stuff. If you get that quarterback in the right year, guess what? It makes up for everything. And, it's not fun analysis. We're not digging deep. I could go to, walk down the street and anyone could tell me that, but that doesn't make it any less true. It's true. And so to me, if you're the Eagles with these 3 first-round picks, I don't think it may increase the urgency, but that all depends on what the owner thinks. If Jeffrey Lurie is saying, let's go, we bought time last year, we got to get a quarterback this year, then yeah, it would. But if Jeffrey Lurie is saying, you know what, if we want to go into 2022, buy another year with Jalen Hurts, let's maybe trade back with one of those picks, accumulate some more draft capital, provide some flexibility for next season. If Hurts improves, great. We got ourselves a quarterback. If he doesn't, guess what? We still have these picks next year. So I think that is probably how they will approach it. Now, I will say this. I'm not of the mind that like there's no way they're going to draft a quarterback in the first round. I think if with these 3 picks, if you see a guy with high upside, you take a flyer on it. And that doesn't mean he replaces Jalen Hurts right away. It kind of gives you 2 swings at it, and that's sometimes what you have to do. You have to say, let's not put all our eggs in one basket. We're not sure. Let's give ourselves a chance here. You look at guys like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. I mean, these guys were not top 3 picks, and you can go around the league. And so it's an imperfect science to scout these quarterbacks. And so to me, I would look at the quarterbacks and say, is there a guy with that high upside? We might not be sure that he's ever going to reach it, but our scouting, our analytics, our coaching staff, our interviews with him, we can see a scenario. It might be there's only a 10% chance of it hitting, but we see a scenario where this can be one of the top 5 guys in the NFL who can really lift everyone around him. And if that's the case, I think you really have to consider taking a shot on that guy and adding him to the mix.
Sheil, for me, the biggest story in the National Football League over the last 24 hours, and it's kind of fascinating to me, and this question is for you, but J-Mac, if you're going to add to it, please do so. It came out on Real Sports yesterday, Brian Gumbel's show on HBO. They interviewed both Brian Flores and a couple of its attorneys, that the Dolphins, when they fired/released, said goodbye to Flores, apparently pointed out that in his contract, there is an NDA with all NFL coaches' contacts that you're not supposed to badmouth the organization as you go out the door. They wanted to confirm with him that it's in that contract. His lawyers put up screenshots of pictures of an NDA that they actually wanted him to sign above and beyond his contract. The Dolphins, of course, immediately denied they, in any way, shape, or form, tried to influence him to sign an NDA. Is this part of a standard coaching contract in the National Football League? Is this just another really bad black eye for the owner of the Dolphins? What do you make of that story that broke yesterday on Real Sports?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know the answer to the first part, to be honest, whether it is standard procedure or not. I mean, there's always, it's felt like this unwritten code that you leave a team and you're not going to kind of just go scorched earth or whatever you want to call it and, reveal all the kind of dirty secrets that go on behind the scenes in the NFL. Now, most of the time, that's because coaches want to get hired again. And so there's
takes
no
care
real,
of itself. Yeah.
There's no real motivation. If they're going to do that, then another team's going to say, well, we're not hiring you. We don't know who we're bringing in. And so, good for Brian Flores, in my opinion. It certainly seems like that's a bit of a train wreck of a franchise in Miami, with how they were operating, with what he revealed there. And so, it was good on him. And I have no issues with him kind of saying, listen, I'm going to air all this out. We're going to see what comes of it. It's time for change in the NFL. And if it tarnishes my reputation a little bit, so be it. And, he got the job with the Steelers as an assistant. He's obviously overqualified for that position, but hey, he'll still be in the league there. He's with a great organization in Pittsburgh. And so, it's probably it is the biggest story in the NFL, the Brian Flores situation this offseason. And so the twists and turns continue to happen.
Well, to kind of further that a little bit, Sheil, just the entire coaching carousel as a whole, we had 9 openings this cycle, more than I think most of us expected at the beginning. And obviously it landed the way it landed. When you look at each individual coaching offer and how teams went, any thoughts on how this process goes, not just this year but every year? Because I see a lot of groupthink. Everybody starts with the same interview list and it kind of spawns off from there. Any ideas how to improve that sort of process?
Yeah, it's funny, when before I started working as writing about the league and the NFL, or whether it was just growing up as a fan, you kind of think that people who get in positions of power in the NFL are the best and the brightest, whether it's the GMs or the owners. And then you start working and you're going, all right, these really are not well-oiled machines, these organizations at all. And really the truth is, owners, when they're looking for a coach, guess what they do? They do what everyone does. They go online, they check hey, well, what did this reporter, what's his top 15 list say? Oh, what does his top 15 list say? Okay, well, that's a good place to start. Oh, wait, the other team is interviewing this guy. Should we interview that guy? Yeah, maybe we should. All right, let's go ahead and do that. And so that's how they put together these lists. So you're absolutely right. It's not like they're, they know what they're doing per se. It's they go based on that, and then they might have a connection. Hey, Peyton Manning recommended Adam Gase. That's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill Belichick said Joe Judge was a good coach on his. Hey, that's good enough for me. Go ahead and bring him in, and then they bring him in. And so it is a very flawed process. They don't search far and wide. There is a lot of groupthink. I mean, like the idea that just because a guy was a coordinator on a Super Bowl winning team, that would automatically make him the best candidate. I mean, think about how silly that is. Like all the circumstances that go into making the Super Bowl, all the luck and randomness there is. And you're just going, oh, well, he got to the Super Bowl. He's a coordinator. Let's go ahead and hire him. I mean, there could be a linebackers coach on a team that went 7-10, who's like the best coach in the NFL, but doesn't have the politics or doesn't have the right agent. I mean, that's another thing. They one agent places these guys in all different types of places. So it is very flawed. I mean, I wrote a long piece that I would have to bring up here about how you kind of should go about it in terms of casting a wide net, interviewing a lot of people, because really this is your opportunity to steal ideas and get to know people around the league. And so you don't have to hire everybody, but you should be interviewing as many people as possible and saying, hey, we didn't really love that guy, but that was a great idea he had about how to structure practice this way. And then you can implement that down the road. So I would say it was an uninspiring group. Even Doug Peterson gets hired in Jacksonville. Like we all saw how that played out. They didn't go out and target Doug Peterson. They interviewed him. The Byron Leftwich thing falls through. And then all of a sudden they come back and, it might be a blessing in disguise that they get Doug Peterson there working with a young quarterback. But yeah, it's a complete mess. I could probably rant here for an entire hour on it.
Yeah. Well, Sean McVay is the guy before you jump in, Jody. And we've seen it now with Matt LaFleur, very successful. Zach Taylor, bad early, but he gets to the Super Bowl. Brandon Staley, okay, in his first year. And now Kevin O'Connell, as you mentioned, we only got a very brief amount of time with the Rams assistant coaches leading up to the Super Bowl. I got a chance to talk to Kevin O'Connell and Wes Phillips, who got the offensive coordinator job in Minnesota. And the most impressive guy to me by far was Thomas Brown, who was the assistant head coach with the Rams. Yeah, it is 10 minutes. It doesn't mean anything, but just a really impressive guy. I don't get the way this league does business. I don't get it. I can cover this league for 25 more years. I don't get it. Just because I had coffee with Sean McVay. I had coffee with Sheil Kapadia. I should be, I'm a football genius.
That's all it takes. I mean, if you ever drove Bill Belichick to the airport or had brunch with Sean McVay, I mean, you're probably going to get a head coaching job. And even those guys you mentioned, I mean, think about Matt LaFleur gets paired with Aaron Rodgers. Now, Matt LaFleur's done a great job, but Zach Taylor gets paired with Joe Burrow. Even Brandon Staley gets Justin Herbert. I mean, we're talking about three of the best, 5 or 6 or 7 quarterbacks in the entire NFL. So that is such a huge part of it. Just who are you getting paired with at quarterback?
All right, Sheil, I'll give you a chance to go to your diametrically opposite left or right, the brightest of the bright or the dumbest of the dumb. Roger Goodell contract starting to run out, and the NFL is already talking about extending him as well. I have a specific position on Roger Goodell. Love to know yours. Is this a smart thing for the NFL to do or the dumbest thing for the NFL to ever do? Keep Roger Goodell in the place that he's been in for years.
Well, I mean, we have to remember who he works for. And so if I'm an NFL owner and I'm looking at my bank account and I'm looking at the growth of the league and the checks that are cashing every month, go ahead, give him an extension. Business is good. Life is good. And so they are the people who will ultimately determine that. Now, as an objective observer here, I would say, I don't know what your position is, but I think I could guess what your position is. I mean, I think there are a lot of issues with the way the league is running. And, even just you look at this offseason and the kind of the controversies that have, surrounded the NFL. And it does feel like they're bulletproof at times, where it's just like the on-field product, the Sunday afternoons are so intoxicating. And these playoff weekends, I mean, we all love it. We're sitting here, we're watching on TV and we're saying, my gosh, what could be more entertaining than this? You look at the TV ratings and they're up there. But a lot of the stuff, behind the scenes, whether it's treatment of players, whether it's the minority coaches, we just mentioned, whether it's their system for doling out discipline and determining when to hand out discipline, when to not hand out discipline, the Daniel Snyder stuff that's going on in Washington, which is obviously very serious there. So these are like legit controversies that have been surrounding the NFL just in the past 3 months. And so, I would think there would be someone who could probably do a better job with those things. But again, like I said, if I'm an owner and I'm saying, well, you know what, I can still, my yacht is still working down there, and I have multiple properties, and my private jet is still fueling up, then I'm probably not that disappointed with what Roger Goodell is doing.
Yep, good point. Sheil Kapadia, The Athletic, last one from me. Everybody follow Sheil on Twitter at Sheil Kapadia. His pod, Birds with Brands, with our buddy Zach Berman and Bo Wolf as well. I do want to, again, harken back to your recent piece, and one of your top 10 things to not have a disastrous offseason was honestly assess your coaching staff, the abilities of your coaching staff. So I want you, Sheil Kapadia, to honestly assess Nick Sirianni in year one as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles.
I would be encouraged if I were an Eagles fan and looked at Nick Sirianni. I mean, I'm still puzzled, and I still don't have a firm answer for what was going on the first 6-7 weeks of the season with the offense they were running there. But it's really hard to totally overhaul your offense in the middle of a season and have it be successful. And, they were very efficient offensively. I know we all have that Bucs game in our mind because that's the most recent one. But if we look at the larger body of work, I mean, to me, the biggest thing with the coach is, does he maximize the personnel available to him? And I think he did that, certainly with the offense, eventually moving to that run first offense, using Jalen Hurts as a runner, trying to figure out ways to help him in the passing game. And so I think he did a good job there. And he also seems like, he doesn't seem like the drill sergeant type that we've seen with the Matt Patricias and the Joe Judges. I do think in the year 2020 in the NFL, connecting with your players, those relationships are really important. It's not, this isn't high school or whatever you want to call it, where, you can kind of, you're in control. It's a very different setup. And so I think he did a good job relating with his players. So we'll see what's next. I'm not telling you, he's going to lead them to 3 Super Bowls, but if we're going off of the first year, and we didn't really know a lot about this guy and how he was going to operate, I mean, I would be pretty encouraged by what you saw from Nick Sirianni.
Let me follow up with the second most important guy on the Eagles coaching staff, and that's Jonathan Gannon. Was in the mix to get the Houston Texans job, didn't happen. So he is back as the Eagles defensive coordinator. Mixed feelings with Eagle fans here in town. Some like him, some hate him. I would say the hate is more vitriol on the negative side than the positive good vibes about him. Statistically, the Eagles defense was pretty good last year. What's the Sheil Kapadia rating on the Eagles DC?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the sort of advanced stats were not as flattering on Jonathan Gannon. The kind of traditional ones we look at where, like you said, were pretty good. I didn't like it. I mean, I watched, I tried to watch the film every week. It was just not, I didn't like the style of defense. I didn't like how conservative it was. I didn't like having safeties lined up 20 yards off the line of scrimmage or with their heels on the back of the end zone in the red zone. I didn't think they did enough to make opposing quarterbacks sweat and make them confused. I mean, there were too many instances where guys were just going up and down the field against them. I didn't think they affected the passer enough. And so I didn't like what I saw in year one. Now, having said that, it was his first time as a defensive coordinator. It was new personnel. And so we'll see. Maybe in year two, they will make this big leap. But, just when you look at it, when you face good teams and good quarterbacks, like you have to do something to make them hold on to the football or make them think, and with your pre-snap disguise or, not doing the same things kind of over and over again. And I just felt like there were too many games specifically against good quarterbacks where it felt like, they knew exactly what to do before the snap. They executed after the snap. They completed a high percentage of their passes. It felt like their jersey was pretty clean at the end of the game. I would joke sometimes where it felt like the opposing quarterback didn't even have to take a shower. I mean, he can just go ahead and get on the bus and go home. And so I was frustrated with this defense throughout last year. And so I'm kind of in wait and see mode. Let's, by all accounts, people really like Jonathan Gannon. That's a good thing, whether it's his peers, players, coaches, whatever. And so if it is just a situation where it's a young defensive coordinator who needs to learn on the job and is going to get better in year 2, I'll come back at this time next year and say, hey, I was off base in year 1. But if you're asking me what I felt like in year 1, I was pretty frustrated by this Eagles defense.
No, you are not alone. I can guarantee you that. We get that feedback here on Birds 365. I get it on WIP. I'm sure he gets it at The Athletic, where we'll continue to read him and check him out on the podcast with our other Birds with Friends guys who hop aboard with us here on 365. Sheil, thanks much for coming in. Cut down on buying those caps. You got kids to get through college here, buddy. You can't be just willy-nilly buying caps and waiting for the Amazon guy.
Sound like my wife. Yeah, I think you're right. You're right, Jody. That's probably true. All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Sheil.
Sheil Kapadia, good dude, great football writer, good guy to have on with us whenever we can get him here on Birds 365. All right, Jody Mac, coming back to do what? Put a bow on the show on Birds 365.